Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
Welcome back to the 817 podcast. This is Jimmy here with EJ on a nice Sunday morning. How's your week been?
It's been good, man. You know, busy time. You know, Jill Biden knows the 817 podcast.
Yeah, you've had a big week.
Yeah, it was cool. You know, I was gonna make it my alarm clock. Dr. Jill Biden saying thank you, EJ.
Yeah. Operation Get First Lady Dr. Jill Biden on the podcast is officially underway now.
Yeah. Now that we're best friends. You know, you call her Dr. Biden, I get to call her Jill now. That's
my 5 degrees of connection to everybody has shrunk significantly now. So thank you.
Yeah, no, so it's been a good week good week, and but yeah, really excited for we got a lot to talk about. It's just Fort Worth moving in many ways.
Definitely. I think our big story this week will probably take some time later on to talk about the conversation we had with mayoral candidate Ann Zadeh last week.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, one of the major things this week was that Visit Fort Worth held their annual meeting. Typically, this is a really big, as in large volume event, obviously scaled down with a virtual component. But the biggest part of the meeting was that they honored Opal Lee with its annual hospitality award, and the 94-year-old who got 1.5 million signatures in favor of making Juneteenth a national holiday. She is an icon in the modern civil rights space. And they gave her the mic and she took off running. And one of the big takeaways that I think a lot of people had from that was her call for Fort Worth to focus on Black tourism and Black hospitality. It's something that we mentioned a few weeks ago of how does Fort Worth brand itself as a place to visit to learn about Juneteenth when we have somebody like this that's here living in this space. We have this KKK building that people are working to revitalize and turn into a community wellness center. I feel like her speech, she didn't mince words at all. She made sure that people understood what she wanted, and I'm interested to see how Visit Fort Worth responds to that and works potentially with her on that.
Yeah, no, seems like, I think when we look at the Juneteenth thing, I think we all have, Tulsa's the kind of same way with Black Wall Street. I think if Tulsa really wanted to do the same thing, so in the sense of people want to learn about the real history of the South and the real history of these areas.
Yeah.
And how, through all these, scars and cracks, how do we provide an experience to everyone where it's like you still leave, even though you're telling the ugly parts of what's all happened, but you're still going to leave but now look what's Fort Worth's becoming. Look what Fort Worth is doing today to really it's almost like you see a flower kind of growing out of a concrete sidewalk or something like that. That's the experience. I think, Visit Fort Worth, I feel like should be around Black history in Fort Worth, because it is, look at the history. It's kind of sad how long we lasted as a relatively large capital to the KKK.
Yeah.
In history. So, and she's so cute. She's so such a great lady. And hey, we got an endorsement for Deborah Peoples.
Yeah, she during her speech endorsed Deborah Peoples for mayor, which there are a lot of people watching that, and a lot of people who tend to vote watching.
Yeah.
But one of the other pieces that she did mention,
but that's also going to be big too, is when you look at you'll see how many people support Opal Lee.
Yeah.
When we look at who they vote for.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
We'll see who you vote for in the mayor election. Yep. And based off of that will tell us, if you're really about this action or not.
Yeah. But another thing she hit on was, she said, don't gerrymander me out of your neighborhoods, which we obviously, Ann touched on the independent redistricting task force. And there was an article in Fort Worth Weekly's site this week about how the Race and Culture Task Force has largely been ignored by Mayor Price and a number of people on the city council. Ann didn't say this specifically as an example of making something political or party oriented when it doesn't need to be, but generally our city council right now would go 6-3 Republican, and we see a lot of protection against using an independent redistricting committee, because that would probably allow a pretty significant change up of the city council makeup. So 2021, we vote in a new city council, and then that city council gets to form the districts or choose how they form the districts for the 11 that will be voted on for 2023. I feel like this is something that keeps coming up, is that we brought in this race and culture task force in 2018. They gave us 22 recommendations. The city council said, okay, I hear you, but we haven't done anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's the same sort of thing that we heard after Tatiana Jefferson's murder, that we're going to do something about this. We're going to change. And now, like a year and a half later, things are all still the same. So I don't know. I mean, it could mean that there will be a big shakeup this election in the makeup of the city council.
Yeah. I wonder how, but you also got to look, like, what's interesting is a lot of this is, and I feel like Opal Lee and Deborah Peoples, they know this feeling of Fort Worth of, oh yeah, you want to put us on TV, you want to talk about it, you want to talk about it. But at the end of the day, when we vote, the opposite happens.
Yeah.
And so I'm as much as I want to get excited, and that's what I feel like as we learn as like young people who are interested in the city is, a lot of this they've been doing, she's 94, right? She's been doing this for
a long time.
And she probably knows, okay, yeah. But we'll see where the dollars go. We'll see where it goes. And I think the tough part about real change, it takes taking a hit. Like, it takes being selfless.
Yeah.
Right? And leading with action, and businesses and economies are not held accountable or not celebrated when they do those things.
Yeah.
It's GDP, it's growth.
Mm-hmm.
It's growth at all costs. And so if I can, do things around black and brown people to show that, enough to get people to buy or get people to visit, but I'm not willing to maybe put my investments in the right place or do the right things, because that impacts growth. And that's, I think, always the hard part with cities. And that's why I'm really excited for our next episode, when we talk to Michael with Near South Side, because I think he would have a lot around that. So, but what's your take on how does this mix up in the entire election, like from city council to the mayor's seat, after Ann Zadeh, after walking through this, like what's your kind of take?
Well, I think it's interesting, and looping back to the Visit Fort Worth annual meeting, CEO Bob Jameson talked about how the music industry is one of the biggest industries in Fort Worth. And who are Fort Worth's biggest musicians? It's like, how do we continue to support these people, not just in help make Fort Worth more of an iconic place, but actually get behind them with votes. I don't know. I don't know what percent of Fort Worth Weekly's readership are voters, are typical local election voters, but they are an alternative news source that speaks to a specific population of people who are really committed to their journalism. And so wielding that influence, putting out an article that in bold says that the mayor has been misleading the public and the predominant group of people on the city council have been misleading the public, that could provide a good amount of leverage for Deborah Peoples and Ann Zadeh, who are saying we need to do something different. We need to change the way things are done now. And depending on which candidate they get behind, I think it could have a really big influence on May 1st, 2021.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, like the runoff and where does that, when it comes down to 4-2.
Yeah.
Because no one, so like, and what happens there. So that's going to be interesting. Who are the two?
Yeah.
And, there's a lot going on. You're learning more that everyone has, again, because only 6% of people vote. So, but you're seeing where people are getting their votes and their strategies. And it's interesting how, like, me and you are like, man, it's very quiet for there to be such a big mayoral election right now.
Yeah.
Like with 4 people, but everyone kind of seems like they know the game, and it's just like, I got to get enough. And I know these numbers. So it's going to be neat to see how close it actually is.
Yeah. As we were, just driving around this week, started to see some signs for people for the first time. Dr. Bird had some off of Montgomery. Deborah Peoples had some in the Stop 6 area. And those are the only ones that I've seen so far. But you're right. It does seem sort of quiet. And I wonder if if the candidates are expecting some sort of election fatigue and want to condense the amount of time that they are in front of people to a very short time so that people aren't tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's probably part of the strategy right now. And Ann mentioned that last week about how between a super emotional election, a Georgia runoff, like, people are probably tired of this. So if you wait until March to really start going all out, you might gain a little bit of extra trust with people that they know you're not, going overboard and that you're really passionate about this. I think it'll be really interesting. But speaking of alternative news sources, Fort Worth has a new nonprofit online only news publication soon to launch called the Fort Worth Report. They hired a publisher and CEO, Chris Cobbler, who previously worked at the Victoria Advocate. They're looking to hire a few reporters and a managing editor by the end of March. So I'm guessing that means April or May they'll probably launch. They say they're going to focus on local government, schools, and other civic affairs. It's so important to have local news. Obviously, you're listening to this, like, you understand that. But just to have another publication that is passionate about delivering news that might get skipped over by the bigger Star Telegram type publications is so important to hold local leaders accountable, hold local advocacy groups accountable. I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, no, I think it's I mean, and you got some names on there that we were familiar with.
Yeah, so their board members are going to include former Fort Worth councilman and currently DFW Airport board member Bill Meadows, attorney and Fort Worth Chamber chairwoman Marianne Auld, Jonathan Morris, Visit Fort Worth Executive Vice President Mitch Whitten.
We got to get Mitch on. And you know Mitch?
Yeah.
I feel like we should get Mitch on the show.
Yeah.
Seems like a cool guy.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll send him a message.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Retired AP executive and TCU journalism director John Lumpkin. Yeah, I mean, that's a really like star-studded board. And I think it's also exciting to see the Star Telegram be excited about this.
Yeah.
Like there's not competition there. Like there will obviously be overlap at times, but getting more people interested in reading more news is ultimately helpful for the entire community. It's the same with like coffee shops. When you have more people who understand and are into craft coffee, it helps bloom the entire culture in the area. Same with art, museums, podcasts, music. Yep. Like as more people start to understand the depth and quality of it, it becomes a more ripe market for places like this to pop up.
Yeah, and I'm definitely I mean, I'm always down to see how these things work, because I mean, and maybe it's just because now we do this every week that I'm noticing more, but I feel like we have elevated, like, and like as a I mean, Star Telegram has their like their little like 3-minute podcasts on Spotify, and like even just like what I'm really impressed with is like everyone is still pitting out consistent content on their podcast, like famous Fort Worth Famous, which I love their name. Like there's like a lot of people doing stuff. And it's just coming from different spots. So it's really cool to just see everyone do their thing. And and I think I'm interested to see what their shift is, because I feel like the Fort Worth Business Press has been fun. We've talked about Fort Worth Magazine's last couple stories being awesome. Yeah. We definitely have the right media players.
Yeah, and I wonder what they're going to cover. Right, like they're pitching as like somewhat alternative, like giving light to different stories. So I'm interested to see what they are going to cover that might get skipped over by other publications right now, especially hopefully giving light to a lot of like minority-led stories and minority community-driven stories that might get skipped over right now.
Yeah. And I feel like what's cool about it's funny. The more and more I'm learning that and seeing that we're having consistent listeners, and it's kind of weird, right? Like I don't know how you feel about it, but like we're a small little podcast, but we have people who like legitimately listen regularly. Yeah, and it's bigger than our friend group, right? Yeah. It's like getting messages on LinkedIn from people like, I don't know if I like from Leadership ISD or like Leadership Fort Worth, one of those like programs. And like, they're talking about, the 817 podcast, or like I listened to the 817 podcast, and like, I was like, yeah. And I'm like, cool. Like, well, we just did one with Ann Zadeh. You should check it out. He said, oh yeah, I listened to it already on my run. Like, I'm like, wow. Okay, man. Like really cool. So I wonder where we fit in all this. Cause now that I feel like, I think what I'm learning is just people like our narratives in the sense of being audio, being outside of journalism. Cause I don't think we consider us media. We almost just consider us, I guess I don't know how, like, I don't know.
Random guys who consume media.
Yeah. They consume media. And, but we also do work in, and have lives. And then we come here and we record on Sundays. And it's just cool to just like see the support everyone has for everyone, and all the different guests we've had. And then also just like the respect to I have to our, consistent listeners. It's been meaningful, for me at least, to like continue to do better. And I apologize, this week I feel like it's been a busy week, but I feel like, there's so much going on. But I feel like we should continue to deliver. So, and this is awesome. I see that there's going to be a newsletter, and some open positions. I wonder what kind of other experiences they're going to get into.
Yeah, I know that. So they are if you are a journalist, they are hiring right now. If you go to their website, they've got a few posted positions. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited for a new way to consume the news here. And I wonder if they are going to go like a morning brew type of route where you're getting that email first thing you wake up in the morning, like breakdown of, hey, here's the big stories. Come check us out, or maybe a weekly version of that to start. Yeah, I think the big thing we want to talk about this week is just reflecting on the conversation we had with Ann Zadeh last week. What did you think about it? What were your takeaways?
Oh, I thought she was awesome. To get on our podcast, if I feel like I've even had people like, I wonder why she would like, that's like, like you guys have a lot of opinions and you guys maybe opinions that are different than hers. And like she came on and it was awesome. And and I don't, and in the interview, after like listening to it, it was like, I thought about like, I really wanted to keep it where we weren't, I don't feel like I've endorsed anyone or feel like we like individually know who we're voting for. I don't know who I'm voting for right now. Like I don't. So getting to know her, I loved just like her logic models, I guess, of how she was thinking about it, her experience. And I was always seeing her as like almost an underdog. But then when I see how big her district is, that was like, oh, okay. There's options here.
Yeah.
For you to get there,
For sure. Like if you only need, Betsy Price in 2019 technically only needed like, 19,000 and change votes. I think she got like 24,000. If that's all you need and you're in a district of over 100,000 people that are probably more
a district that votes.
Yeah. More committed to voting than a lot of other areas of the city. There's a lot of votes there to be had. And I think she mentioned it, how like her office prides itself on being very responsive and people outside of her district will call her office because they can't get a response from theirs.
Yeah.
And I think that's just reflective.
I don't think I made the show, but yes, she did say that. Okay. Which was true. She responded to us and she jumped in like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. I got a handwritten note from her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, she's good. She's good.
Yeah, I really appreciated her talking about everybody deserves a livable, walkable community. And I think that is so important. And we, like, living over here in East Fort Worth, like, there's not a ton of restaurants over here. There's not, like, grocery stores, like, and seeing what they have done with Bluebonnet Circle, what South Main and the South Side has become, and trying to be conscious of gentrification, seeing that we've had problems with that. That's something that I can really get behind. It is how could our neighborhood that right now has like Coffee Folk and La Rueda is right across the street from it, and then a bunch of chains and then Whataburger, McDonald's. Like how could we become more of a Bluebonnet Circle type of area while still cultivating the community and the diversity that is over here? That's something that I could really get behind.
Yeah, and that's what I like about her as well as the intentionality, and I like doers, and to me she feels like a doer. Yeah. And she's been doing the work for a long time. Yeah. And I actually was at a friend's house and I was like, "Did you listen to it?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm an Ann Zadeh person right now. I would say like if you made me vote tomorrow, that's who I would vote for." Yeah. But again, I think I'm excited. Everyone brings me excitement differently. Again, I thought it was cool when we talked about the future, because I'm a believer that's what we should be. One of the top 3 questions we should be asking every mayor is what's the vision of Fort Worth in 10 years? Yeah. And what's that answer in a meaningful way? Mm-hmm. Because I think when most people don't vote, it's because it's older people, 66. And what are they worried about? Crime, safety of neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like that talk and speak is important, but the true meat and potatoes, as you want to get a city like us excited, is where's opportunity? Where's exposure? Where's access? How are we going to build an equitable city? Where's the vision? How do we show that we're a 21st century growth emerging city that's going to compete with the best? And I don't think that's necessarily going to matter this this election, especially because of the race and injustice piece of the history of like what we've been going through recently. So I think it's not going to happen, but that's my biggest thing is there's an opportunity, I think, like to get people excited around the future of Fort Worth in an innovation way. And she talked about her kids, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And I thought that was neat. Yeah, it seems like I'm excited for her, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm just really nervous about Dr. Bird. That's my whole thing. My whole thing is if it comes down to a runoff, whatever the runoff is, if it's whoever versus Dr. Bird, then everything, I'll say or do comes out to that person. Right. And so, and I would love to get the other guests on. I would love to get the other candidates on, or at least hear them on things. Right.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's not on 817, I would love to. I mean, the Fort Worth Magazine, shout out for that dope picture and story. That was awesome to do. So I think that's really a lot of I heard a lot of great feedback from people who listened to the podcast about her.
Yeah. Well, in talking to the future, like Betsy Price is finishing up 10 years as mayor, and obviously she's Fort Worth's longest tenured mayor. But if we're looking ahead at somebody who could be another long-term mayor, realistically, that would probably be Ann Zadeh or Maddie Parker, just because of age with Deborah Peoples. Or I don't know how many times Dr. Bird could win just with where Fort Worth is headed, age-wise. But that's the question to be asking is, if you're another 4 or 5 term mayor, what do you see Fort Worth as looking like when you're done with it in 2030, 2031? Because I think that is really important. Like you love to bring up Miami, and just like the youth and fervor that is behind a city like that, that's attracting a lot of business and young people to come move there from all over the country. And I think that it's not far-fetched to imagine the same thing for Fort Worth.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It doesn't take really any money. It doesn't take any money. It just takes a vision.
Yeah.
It really Miami just started talking itself up. Like that's all it is.
Yeah.
We were shut down. People were looking for a place, and you just need to get one big fish. And I think I think Brad from Linear Labs, I think that's what it's called. We mentioned him. I think he's a big enough fish from an entrepreneurial brand.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a Silicon Valley guy.
Yeah.
Backed by Paul Graham, at least homies in some capacity. And his startup was a big startup in its time. It failed out and got acquired, but it had the potential to be it. So and he loves Fort Worth, and he is Fort Worth. He wears cowboy boots. He's it. But he was also, now he's doing this high battery thing, and I think legitimately can be it. So, we got a winner, potentially, who could if we somehow got the mayor to work with him to really start schmoozing some people who maybe are already getting capped out in Austin.
Yeah.
Right? Oh man, this Austin thing's cool, but man, this is expensive for our place. And, and a lot of who are moving to Miami are Republicans who are tired of Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
They're tired of taxes and all that. So they're moving, to Miami. Those are the people who would move to Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And Fort Worth could sell that, values to you. So we just should be in that mix. And it's not that hard to do. I don't think it's just we got to get out of being. We pride ourselves with being small at the same time. And I understand that. I appreciate that. That's why I love living here.
Yeah.
Not having to like valet my car, not having to, always parking spot. I don't got to wait too long to get a cocktail when things are open. Like that is enjoyable, but I also think there's enough space in Tarrant County. There's enough beauty to go around for us to really continue to provide that Panther-like slowness and still be a high growth city.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But Ann, I mean, really just, I'm excited. I just, the fact that we got to spend an hour with her was just cool. And even just her champion us, like, just like, hey man, you guys matter. Like what you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm.
That she listened to the podcast was cool. And we'll see what happens with, like Maddie Parker, right. With her endorsements. Because I think about the speech that Opal Lee had, and the people who probably fund Visit Fort Worth are also, have already said who they're endorsing.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. I just think we're going to have to choose the sides and like start seeing that. And it's going to be like interesting how it pans out, because whoever it is it's going to be the CEO. And that's what I liked about Betsy is like, as much as there's little things, Betsy was awesome because she was the brand. Like if you took her and just like talked to her, like someone like that's Fort Worth. She legitimately was Fort Worth. And I think this next person has to be, this is Fort Worth. You legitimately feels like this, like you are the CEO. You're the brand to everyone else.
Yeah.
And when people talk to you, like this is what my city feels like.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be cool to see how that pans out and who that person's going to be.
Yeah.
To bring that charisma to the city that Betsy did so well.
Yeah. Okay. Here's an interesting thought I just had.
By the way, who's your top pick right now for mayor if you're voting tomorrow?
I would probably vote for Ann.
Yeah.
So like Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms in Atlanta, like
exactly.
She's on MSNBC, NBC, all the time. She's a person that they will tap to come and talk. I feel like Betsy started to do that, especially this election cycle for Fox News. There were a number of times that I saw that she was giving like national news sound bugs. Do you think that Ann would be a type of person that could get into news places like that to be a national face of Fort Worth? Like, I think a lot of people could probably tell you who Keisha Lance Bottoms is now.
Yeah.
Because she's the mayor of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Do we think that Ann could do that same thing for Fort Worth?
See, that's tough because I think all that also happens because what then happened in the city in Atlanta played such a big piece
to
the narrative. So one, Fort Worth have to like play that narrative. And if we want to go there, like Deborah did pit us on a national for Black Lives Matter.
True.
And like, that was big. And, to me, I mean, again, it was 1 hour interview. I mean, she's awesome. And she gives I think a part of the weakness or a part of the challenge is she is a doer. Mm-hmm. And like, I think I get more doer vibes from her, like that which I respect. Like, and I don't think like, and I think with the Keisha Lance Bottoms thing was like, she's also, she's just representing a city. And I think diversity is big right now.
Yeah.
And I think like that's, hard right now, I guess. It's like, and so but I don't necessarily feel any of them I feel like can do what Keisha Lance Bottoms is doing, or, even Suarez is doing in, Miami. So, and obviously there's tons of mayors that we don't know about who are running successful cities, and that can just be their strengths.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you necessarily have to.
Yeah, I don't think it's a have to thing.
Yeah.
That was just something that popped into my head of like you talking about Betsy being like Fort Worth.
Yeah, she was. I mean, and yeah, she was. I mean, it was awesome. I mean,
she is. She's still alive.
Yeah, she is. She is. What about, I know we got, to get to the wins and losses. Honestly though, if you had it like thinking about their promo videos, Maddie Parker's, she had a testimonial in the Fort Worth Magazine piece that they did around being an emerging city, getting high.
Yeah, I mean, I think
people.
I think a big part of her platform is trying to attract major businesses.
Yeah.
Her doing so, or her means of doing that seems to be around major tax breaks.
Yeah.
Which, you know, you can go either way on. Like, they obviously, like, when you bring jobs to the area, like, generally it turns into a net positive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's a big thing
videos,
for her.
Like when I watch the videos, she gave the presence of, oh, I see a little like fire ambition here to like that intensity around it.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but I think what I worry about why Beto, you know, when I think about Beto and like. And Democratic, like I'm now talking about Deborah, is like getting too much into the granular of police reform and all this stuff. Is these are things that matter, but again, the same way maybe Bird will sell safety and all that. You know, it's like the next big thing is like Fort Worth is so much bigger than these like activities that goes on. Show the vision, share optimism. Give it to us.
Yeah.
Where are we going? How are we going to go from? I talked to Cameron Cushman the other day. We're the 13th biggest city, but we're the number one city, the largest city without an accelerator program. Without a legit startup accelerator program.
Yeah.
What you know, like that's crazy. You know, like, and it's going to impact us. We're either going to become like, hey, you know, cool little town to live in, or like, can we win with the work from home? And my big sell too, and that's the other thing is like, I don't think the sales also has to be companies. Like it just has to be knowledge-based workers now. Every single person who can work from home can live wherever they want. Yeah. How do we say, I'm going to try out, you know what? Me and my family are going to live in Fort Worth for 3 months. Yeah. And then fall in love with it. Right. So, what are some of your, let's go into wins and losses and get some losses in, and, then we'll get ready for, we're already having, we have some interviews coming up for you guys. They're going to be really exciting. So we'll go from there, and we have one right after this. So we're going to get these wins and losses in. We got 8 minutes. So you got something?
Yeah, I think loss this week. It's like maybe a win-loss hybrid. But there's an article in the Star Telegram talking about how, like, we dodged a bullet with not having the stock show rodeo, which I agree with. That is a win. I'm glad that we did not have it because of the COVID implications. But I would say the loss is that, like, our major news publication has to run this piece, like trying to prove to people that we dodged a bullet by not having 100,000 people show up what would have been yesterday to a major stock show event when our ICUs would be at capacity. It's just like, I don't know, reading it just made me sort of frustrated that, like, today's Super Bowl Sunday, a bunch of people are going to go to parties. Like, we're finally on the downtrend of the holiday COVID cycle, and we're going to screw it up tonight, starting at like 5 p.m. But just the fact that, like, they had to run an article like that, basically like begging people to acknowledge that it was a good thing that we didn't have the stock show rodeo.
Yeah. I actually felt like that about the apartments story posted on Monday early this week. It was basically Luke wrote the article, but and the person he was interviewing was like the head of like real estate association. And so like you could just tell his POV was like, yeah, like it's not bad people who been in apartments. It's these young professionals who are single. And like, it was really like pro apartments. And I just felt like it was it was like a very biased piece. And like how, like, I don't know, I felt that way about the person he highlighted mainly throughout the thing. And I felt the same way. I felt like it felt forced almost. I don't know. Like, are we trying to put a positive spotlight? Which I think there is positives, but let's be clear. We now live in a world where, our generation, we have to live in apartments because we can't afford to live. Our parents went to college, bought their first fixer upper, that's their first house. Ours is now, we go spend $1,600 a month to live in a fancy, with a jacuzzi in the lobby. And that's not saying that that's not cool. And the data doesn't show that is what we're doing, but it's also because of like lifestyle and how options have changed, inflation of college debt. Now we're not just having college debt. Now we're having all these young impressionable people think this is okay. And we're losing out on decades of asset building.
Yeah.
That's like legitimate. And I guess that's my whole thing about it. But, I felt that was my loss too. So maybe, losses on like, could be a cohesive feeling like we had to pit out stories for things.
Yeah.
But it's tough.
Yeah.
It's not.
What's your win?
Ooh, my win. My win is actually there's, speaking of like startups and innovation, a startup in Fort Worth got $60 million.
I saw that.
Yeah. Therapy, like something therapy MD or something like that. Very about mental health support services for university students and maybe staff.
Yeah. It's like a telehealth type of thing.
Yeah. And it's like telehealth MD or something like that. Never heard of them. Very, and they got $60 million. And even Dallas wrote about it. So that's cool because they also don't have any innovation startups as well. So realize it's not just us. So that was cool. But then also I saw another one where it was like, I think a medical company was also building out a hospital to provide more. Like there's a lot of, I felt like the positive was like, there's a lot of innovation stories and business stories as well happening. So my one, what about you?
Mine, I guess, like starts local and then moves national. Like we have 2 drive-through vaccination sites that are launching. Roger Goodell also announced that all NFL stadiums will be used as mass vaccination sites, meaning that Cowboy Stadium, AT&T Stadium soon will be a mass vaccination site. And then the last couple of days we've been over 2 million vaccine doses administered, which is putting us on pace to hit, Biden's goal of 150 million vaccinations given in his first 100 days. So, I think that we're really quickly hitting a very positive trend, even if locally we've botched a number of things. Like I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, all the confusion of where do I go? How do I register? Where do I register? How do I know it's my turn? Are going to be moved out of the way pretty quickly.
I saw this. I saw this on the Financial Times. The number of COVID-19 vaccinations globally has surpassed the total number of confirmed cases, a landmark moment that underscores progressive made in taming the pandemic despite mounting concern about the threat of new variants. According to their vaccine tracker, the total number of doses administered climbed to 105 million Wednesday, while the number of confirmed cases is 103.5 million.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that graph.
Yeah, that's fast. I mean, especially like it has felt slow so far in the US, but like worldwide, like we are moving fast on this.
Yeah. So that's cool. And so look at us ending on a positive.
Yeah.
Look at us.
Thanks everyone for listening this week. We're excited to continue to dive into the mayoral race. Hopefully we'll have some more interviews coming up around that. But until next time, we appreciate you listening and appreciate you engaging with us.
Yep. We got interviews. Carly from Tribe Alive or Law the Label now. which I'm excited to learn about. Mike Brennan from Near South Side. A lot of fun stuff coming your guys' way, and just thank you for listening.
Dopamine swipe, follow us like double tap. Now they control your life, control your life.